But I said to him, I go, dude, that's the one that's going to get you stabbed.
Really?
Yes. And he used to talk about it on stage, saying, Joe Rogan always says that's the one that's going to get me stabbed. Like,
wow.
Which is so crazy. It's not Tony's wheelhouse, man. Tony's just talking shit about people's clothes and stuff. Like, he's very shallow with that. Like, his comedy is all just, you're a loser. You know, but it's fun. It's like, and he'll get through it. You know, he's going through a storm. Don Rickles was almost like, he was in this category of ultra famous comedian, right? He was in this Dave Chappelle type category where just seeing Don Rickles, all of a sudden it was a comedy show. Like, oh my God, Don Rickles is here. Tony Hinchcliffe does not have that, right? If Dave Chappelle went up and did 10 minutes in front of Donald Trump or 10 minutes in front of Kamala Harris, that's a different thing. Because it's like he's a cultural icon and you immediately go into stand-up comedy mode. Like, oh, Chappelle's here, right? That's what Don Rickles had with Reagan. Tony doesn't have that. It's a bad thing to do. The whole thing's bad.
People always used to say to us when we started trigonometry, they were like, you know, the whole free speech thing is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. You just want to be able to say racist things. You're a race. And
they were right.
And they were you know? And that's why I came to Texas.
Yeah, whoever booked him is shitting their pants right now.
Why did you do that? I tell all comedians, don't ever do comedy at something that's not a comedy event. Don't do it. Don't ever do comedy at a place that's doing also. Doing, you know, is it gonna have a bunch of speakers and you're gonna go up and do 10 minutes? Don't ever do that. It's a terrible setup. It's a terrible setup, and it's a political rally, and you're doing jokes like you're in a comedy club. It doesn't. You can't. Don't do it.
I don't really blame Tony though, because Tony is what Tony is, right? Like, if you want an insult comic, Tony is the best in the world.
That's literally his great specialty is roasting.
Right. So
he's the best roaster ever.
If you book Tony Hinchcliffe is going to be Tony Hinchcliffe.
Exactly.
So whoever booked him, that's the person that's made the mistake.
Not just booked him, but apparently went over his material.
Did they go over his material?
No.
Oh my.
This is what I've read on the internet, so it must be true. I gotta tell you, that joke kills at comedy clubs. I don't like the joke. It kills. And I said to him, it's just like, if you're Puerto Rican and you hear that in the audience, like, oh, but it's a funny joke. The joke does well.
Sent them a script. They send their script, like their punch-up script. Right. Combine the two.
Yeah, you're like, that's good enough.
Kind of.
That's great.
I'll tell you what.
There's no reason to work on this anymore. It's just the most watched thing ever.
First and foremost, all you should be saying is thank you, Bert and Tom. Because without us, it is a bunch of people doing the exact same thing.
Right.
Like, we broke up. We definitely.
Yeah,
thank you
it
to
was
Kim Kardashian.
It was a comedy up until you guys started. Then you guys got to really change the tone a bit. You had to make everybody appreciative of laughter.
I had no idea. I told him this.
I'm still living in oblivion. I had a blast. I think we did great. I've not met one person that did not like what we did.
Guys,
people hate you.
I know, it's not as easy. I know. Not all of us are darlings like you chubby-headed. Anyway, so
we should tell you our story. I think it'll really frustrate you.
I think you hate our story.
Oh, well.
No, I'll tell you when we're done. I'll tell you
if it's anything like the set, I probably would hate it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. You guys phoned it in like an Israeli airstrike. I'm joking. Anyway.
He made a joke,
yeah,
right?
exactly. He made a joke.
There's an island of trash.
Yeah.
It's called Puerto Rico. Here's where that joke comes from. Tony is actually obsessed with the Pacific garbage patch, and like the fact that we just throw, like we were talking about, like recycling. Like recycling doesn't work. They don't do it. Most of your bottles, when you throw in a recycler, they get put in landfills. So there's a landfill in Puerto Rico that's way overflowed. Puerto Rico has a legitimate trash problem. Because they're on an island. Like, where are you going to put it, right? There's all these people living on that island. Where are you going to put it? And so they have landfills. Their landfills are way over capacity. So that's where the joke came from.
Right.
Like, the joke came from, like, Tony being environmentally conscious about recycling.
Yeah, they don't seem to have taken it that way.
But from his roaster perspective, that's where the joke comes from.
Totally.
I think it's called Puerto Rico. And you say it and everybody laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, we were at the rally and people say no one laughed. Not quite true. Like, it didn't get a big laugh, but it got a bit of a laugh.
It's a funny joke.
Yeah.
It's, even Jon Stewart said it was a funny joke, which I thought was great of him.
He had much better ones that got a bigger response, but yeah.
It's a terrible. People are like, well, it wasn't funny. Right. Because it was a terrible setup for comedy. Everything was wrong. If you were at a comedy club and the guy did that set, you'd be laughing. It's just a bad setup. Everything's wrong. It's like, it's just a bad environment. It's a bad environment for comedy. And, that joke, I would have told him, don't you dare do that joke. I never, sat down with him. I didn't know what bits he was going to do. But then I heard he did that joke. I was like, oh, Jesus, Tony. Here it comes.
I think there are comedians probably who... I think Tony is the wrong type of comedian for that environment. If you had someone come in
100%.
who wasn't a roast comedian, who actually made everyone feel good and was just clean.
Who could do it and just talk about cultural issues and get everybody to laugh is Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is really good at that. He could do something like that because he's so knowledgeable when it comes to politics. He could bridge the gaps between humor and fact and reality and what we're up against. He could do that. But it's not Tony's wheelhouse, man. Tony's just talking shit about people's clothes and stuff. He's very shallow with that. Like, his comedy is all just, you're a loser. But it's fun. It's like, and he'll get through it. He's going through a storm, and that's what happens with all these things, with people like that. But it's good for him too. Like, when he got canceled in the past, he came back way stronger as a comic because he felt like he had to prove something. Like, it made him really tighten up his material, like really edit things well and really write sharp stuff. That's what'll happen with him. He'll come back better.